Hello and welcome to episode 168 of the Imperial Truth. I'm Greg, and joining me, as always, is Mr. Howard. Hello, Howard.
Hello, Greg. Are we certain it's 168?
We are indeed. Yeah. No one probably noticed that I said 166 for last episode, as well as the episode before.
I'd like to think everyone is really taking
On
note
it.
of these things and marking it on their Imperial Truth calendar, of course, and
Oh,
noting down which episode they're on.
I would be disappointed if people just accepted it and moved on and didn't go, actually.
I feel that's the kind of thing I would like to pick up on these things. Yeah, no, doing good though, doing good. Recovered after the Fest experience.
Indeed. Before we get into that, let's talk Element Games for all your plasticky needs. Apparently, there's a big box of toys coming out in the summer.
I've heard rumours.
Hopefully, they're allowing independents more stock of that than they are the latest Kill Team box that's coming out. But there we go. They've usually done a 2-week pre-order window on the big ones, but you'll be able to go to Element Games and get your Leviathan from them, or we stopped there on the Friday on the way up. Got a lot of paints, haven't they, Howard?
Oh my goodness, I've not seen. I mean, you know what Element's like when you see them online, but it's still quite something to go there. It was a hell of a venue. It's an incredible place. Just browsing it and seeing all the products out there, I got a bit giddy.
It's quite funny because it is like the shop is just, it's not a mess, but it's compact, the shop, and then just filled, mainly with lots of paints.
Yes, it feels it feels like you've gone behind the scenes somewhere, and that's partly because of the shop, because the shop being out of the way. It's not a shop like a high street type shop.
Yeah,
it is a converted factory kind of facility, so that does lend a certain something to it. But yeah, I was really pleased we got a chance to stop off there and spend some time there. The gaming hall and everything was one of the best I'd seen, and I've been to a few. That was it, to have that space out there. If I would recommend to anyone who's in that area to be able to swing by Element Games' main home base and check it out.
Yeah, it's I've been going up to that venue in Stockport for a long time, back before Element had it, when it was just the Northwest Gaming Centre, and there were other shops involved, and it's improved a lot in that time. It's certainly, it's a good space. It's good facilities.
Yeah, I was very impressed. There's some very interesting cocktails for those who are interested. But yeah, in terms of product range, I mean, obviously you get all of that online. It's probably one of the best stocked retailers I can think of.
What's really good is you can still hand your code in and stuff at the till, things like that. So get all your crystals,
Always
all
useful.
that kind of stuff as well. But yes, anything plasticky, you can go and get it from Element Games, and indeed any books and what have you as well. So yeah, wonderful stuff. So we talked last episode about changing up the show. Unfortunately, this is not the episode to change things, because this is a slightly unusual episode.
We didn't give a timeline, so we're not breaking any promises.
No, following on
just say it's coming in the future.
Just to see behind the curtain, Howard's off for a little bit of time away very soon, so we are squeezing this one in hot on the heels of Fest, and then hopefully we might get into our stride afterwards. But we need to get something recorded. We don't have much time, so we're mainly going to be talking about Fest this episode, and therefore, particularly with hot on the heels, say, of last recording, there's not a lot of news beyond Fest, so it's basically just us chatting straight about Fest without necessarily putting in the breaks and stuff that we thought we would do. But yeah, forgive us.
I think that's going to work out. I think as a future thing, but this one in particular, particularly as Fest is quite so packed, I think that's. I suppose we could break that down into different sections of Fest, but I think better just talk about it in the round. I think I would suggest.
Indeed. Well, yeah. I mean, we haven't done any hobby again. Short turnaround time. Haven't done any hobby, I'm assuming, or not a lot.
No, not really. No. In short, there was we got a chance to go to Salute. Picked up had bits and pieces for that, but hobby things, but nothing majorly significant, and certainly haven't had a chance to sit down and do any hobby really. I've got a view to putting together a kill team, which is entirely as a result of partly as a result of Fest and partly as a result of a friend's event that we're having up in Nottingham in June. So that's what I've got planned, and I'm quite enjoying the scale of that, but not done any other scale hobby, and I'm getting a real hankering for it again now. But it's just a bit down to both time and space, which is proving problematic. You've dabbled, I think, though, haven't you?
Oh, a smidge. I've cleared a bit of space and just started to put some models together. Slightly trying to break into this, grabbing half an hour here or there, which is still difficult at the moment. But the list of jobs, because of the last month being so busy, the list of things to get done just increases. Like spent I don't know how many minutes trying to organise my mortgage stuff and wondering where money's going. Yeah, all those dull adult jobs that
It's amazing
take
how
up
those add up. Yeah.
enough of a chunk of time to be able to stop you doing something else within that hour's lunch period, or really starting that kind of thing. But yeah, just building a few models, starting to get that little bit going. I've still got so much stuff to clear out, which again just takes like eBaying stuff takes a surprising amount of time for me. Like when you're like, oh
I agree.
shoot,
Yeah.
I need to box this up and I haven't got a box that's remotely the right size, and it needs to be protected because someone spent good money on a book or what have you, and get a bit like careful about packing up books because book collectors can be, even if it's 30-40 quid for a book, it's still, you don't want it to turn up damaged and then people say, oh, it wasn't
No,
like
fair
this.
enough. Fair enough. Yeah, it needs a bit of
So
all these things need a bit of thought and care and consideration. And as I found, I was keeping a whole bunch of boxes around, which is taking up yet more space. So that takes its
indeed.
is a challenge in itself. But yeah, it's nice to be able to have a bit. I mean, I found that the events were, I mean, particularly with Salute and Fest being hot on the heels of each other, say a weekend apart, that was kind of taking up all my, even just planning to go to those things and then attending them themselves was taking up all the time I could reasonably justify towards a hobby thing. So yeah, in terms of actual hobby, it was attendance of events really.
Indeed. It's also frustrating. I'm driving around at work and I'm listening to a hobby podcast or just thinking about stuff. And then at like 11 o'clock in the morning, I'm thinking, oh, yeah, really, oh, that's a good idea. Like when I get back home, I'm going to do X, Y, Z, and then get home.
Yeah,
And then, by the time you get to sit down and do anything, you're like, oh, and the mojo's gone. But
yeah.
that's nature of the beast. It's all gravy. It could be a lot worse, so let's not worry about that too much. Okay, should we talk Fest?
We should.
How are we going? Should
We
we talk
definitely should.
previews now? We might as well. I think we'll do previews.
I think that's better. I think that's probably the thing that's going to be hot on everyone's thoughts, isn't it? Really, because it was, yeah. We'll go the heresy preview specifically.
Yeah, I mean, 40k preview, and on show we did get to see the. I mean, we've seen the Indomitus Terminators already, haven't we? That is a heresy potential thing. I didn't get a good look at them in the cabinet, but we'll see them soon enough. And there wasn't much else. No. So yeah, preview was shared between Heresy and the Old World. We might talk a little bit about that as well. But Heresy-wise, we noticed it on the the preview coming thing. They had the silhouette of a Lancer.
Yes.
Which was curious, and it was like plastic Lancer. I mean, that was pretty much the only thing we could think it would be.
Well, it was interesting, wasn't it? Because you and I were discussing it, and we were saying because certainly you could tell it was a Cerastus
Rastus, yeah.
Silhouette, and we were both saying, well, Heresy does now include all of the Heresy ranges, let's say. So it includes Titanicus, which is Heresy setting. It includes the Aeronautica that is now under because not Aeronautica in its entirety, but there is a branch of Aeronautica that is under Heresy. and any potential future games that might go in that same direction.
Yeah,
Will be under
anything set
Heresy.
in the Heresy period. The rules are, as far as I understand it, and have been told, and it's my understanding is it's all handled by the Age of Darkness team, the Heresy
Which
team.
made us think, well, there's a possibility then that we might have had a surprise Titanicus release and a variant knight that we hadn't seen before. We were just thinking through in those terms of what it could be. So yeah, that was a possibility. It was more likely that it'd be 28 mil. Well, I was really quite surprised. As you say, we saw the silhouette not long before the preview. So that for them to then lead with that item, with that model,
Really big.
was quite impressive.
Yeah.
Entirely logical when you think about it, but it's just not one I expected at all. It really did surprise me.
But it very much can be used in 40k, which helps it a lot.
Yeah.
Like easily ported over. But with the other super heavies not going plastic recently, or the however many they put up with the retooling for the sponsors.
That's all the Fellblade chassis things, isn't it? It's all the
but still,
it's all the Space Marine tanks, basically.
I mean, maybe the sales are higher on knights. I suspect they are because you can make an army of them. You've got a knight army in 40k, and they are super cool. But this means that a lancer's going to go. Oh, how much? I wonder how much it's going to be, because they're not cheap at the moment, are they?
Well, they'll presumably be the same or similar price to the bigger knight that they do in 40k.
It sort of depends on how many sprues it takes, I suppose. So Cerestus Knight Lancer is £225. So is the Atropos. So is the Acheron. I would guess, yeah. So 225 notes. Castigators are the same. Yeah. The Questoris Knight's the upgrade kit, isn't it? So that's 151. It might be a little bit more expensive than regular knights, but regular knights come with.
Yeah, the Questoris Knights is 80. Well, from GW,
No.
A Questoris Knight is 105.
Right.
A Knight Dominus, which is the bigger one, I think, is 110, which you can get discounted down to sort of 80 and 90 quid.
Discount. I mean, that's half of it is discount. Makes such a difference. So the Warden, the Paladin, the Gallant 105, and because it's one box now, which makes all of them, if I remember correctly.
That's
you
correct,
just get everything in one. So if it's the same price as I could see it being a little bit more than the Knight Castellan, but it depends how many sprues it takes as much as anything else. If that's
the
110,
Knight Abominant, the Chaos Knight, also is 110. So I could see it being 110.
Out. Yeah, it's just whether they can do. It's just whether they can do it on the same number of sprues because the legs are longer and things like that, so they're going to take up more of the sprue space. But it's also potentially because they're thin legs. And
the lance is quite easy. The shield will take up a chunk of space, but the lance is quite easy to get on a sprue because it's so long and thin.
It's pretty. Yeah, you wouldn't tell from that picture that it's not resin either. I'm sure there might be subtle differences, but
I think it could, if anything, it could even be superior because it could be crisper detail.
Yeah,
certainly from posability and build point of view. I mean, as you say, it doesn't look any different at all.
I haven't got a knight sprue on me to look at how the legs are laid out, because if the legs are like one sprue and they can be one sprue again because they take up less like more vertical space but less horizontal space, then it could work. But I say even if they were a little bit more, 110 would be under half the price, and then your discount on top.
Do you know how many sprues are in the Knight Questoris box?
Oh, just come off the page. It would say on the GW page. Let's go and have a little man look stuff up. We'll do it on Imperial Knights. Night Warden, here we go. Because it comes with a little man as well, and so does the Night Warden box. So description.
I didn't realise how good the transfer sheet in the Age of Darkness Knight boxes are. There's the Knight Questoris for Age of Darkness, and there's an Armiger for Age of Darkness. The transfer sheet on those is fantastic. 6 Knight houses, as well as a load of generic heraldry. It's really good. Anyway, I digress. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 sprues. Okay.
Yeah, the legs are almost, not quite on one sprue. I think there's some other little bits. No, it might not be. Might be a leg sprue. Been a while. Yeah, I think they're legs.
Yeah, I think it is.
Legs are one sprue. So if they can fit the legs on one sprue, it could work.
Well, I'd imagine they're going to do, as you say, if they can get the legs on one, that's great. Essentially, you're going to have everything that is the Cerastus pattern.
Similar price. Yeah, and this is then the biggest part of that news is once you've got the legs, the body, the arms, all it is weapons. Well, the arms, swap over.
Yeah, the arms I think will be a separate sprue, won't they? And it's the arms from the kind of shoulder down.
Yeah.
I think will be a separate sprue. So the same way as the weapon sprue is separate on the Questoris. So I'd imagine you're going to get probably 3 or 4 sprues that'll be the body and 1 sprue the weapons. And they'll just switch that out. And then you'll get all of the Cerastus pattern knights will be there in due course, which was someone's question in the Q&A. And they said, I'm sure that would be a logical thing for the designers to have considered.
Yeah, yeah, because it's the upper arm's pretty much the same on all of them, much like the other kits. But yeah, it's like once you've done that much work to get the Lancer in plastic, the only question then is, do they do the Atropos again? Because it's slightly different. But why would you not? If you've done that hard work.
Would the Atropos perhaps switch to a resin upgrade kit? I wonder.
Potentially, because it's different shoulder pads.
Yeah, exactly.
Different cowling, slightly different, but yeah, maybe. But yeah,
the resin one presumably didn't have a detailed interior.
Not what I'm aware of. Don't paint interiors.
No, whereas this does. This has a cockpit interior, and I heard at least 2 people talking about doing that as a diorama straight away. People who Golden Demon was at Fest, so you had people who were there first and foremost because they're to enjoy painting and were painters well before they were gamers. So people were very interested in doing that as almost like a mini bust or a mini sort of vignette almost, which I thought was quite a cool idea. Which you couldn't have done. So an upgrade in respect of something that takes it a bit further to taking advantage of what you can do in plastic over and above what you can do in resin. I thought that was very cool.
Yeah, we're going to see. I mean, they're not stunning in the game like they were in, as divisive as they were in the first edition, but with them being plastic, there'll be much more. I've got a Night Lancer that I bought second hand that when it arrived was broken, and I should have sent it back on eBay, but I didn't. I was going to fix it, and then I never got around to it, and I think bits of its lance are lost now. And I'm like, oh, okay. That one might end up as terrain, which is crazy, really. But hey, could be worse. Then what do we get? Let's do the Commanders of the Siege. So, Siege of Cathonia. I thought we might get more about the Siege of Cathonia. We had little bits and pieces. But,
this was all a bit of a bet. I thought this was quite good because I was suspicious that all we would get would be the items from the Siege stuff. I thought we might see the 2 characters, a bit more detail about the Siege, and that was going to be it. So I was delighted that it was much more than that. Yeah.
Yeah, we got a model for Varen Ashuradan, who is the master of the True Sons, but he's certainly engaging with some aspects of the chaos nature of what they're doing. He's got lots of spikes. It's always a bad sign. What is really nice is his axe is like almost the same shape as the eye. of
Yeah.
Horus with the little bit in the middle as well, the pupil as it were. Very nicely done.
I think it's a super. I really like this. I like both of these characters a lot. I'm not a huge fan of that particular style of helmet that they've done with
Yeah,
that's become a sort of signature Sons of Horus thing. I've got a feeling that's something that people either like or don't, and I'm
yeah.
in the
The
latter.
beautiful thing
Um,
about helmets is it's the easiest thing to swap out, isn't it?
entirely, and also I think the unhelmeted head is quite cool. I think it's very Sons of Horus
Yeah.
um, to do that, but I do like the armor mark. I think it's a nice nod to sort of an Artificer Mark III type of look to it. I think is very cool.
Molded on um, Eye of Horus on his left shoulder pad.
Yeah, it's very Sons of Horus.
Some people will be trying to swap that out or file that down, but yeah, no, it's very cool.
The beauty of the Eye of Horus, though, being that you could use it in other um, traitor legions. It's feasible to have the Eye of
Oh,
Horus
what, the
on.
banner? I'm talking about his left shoulder pad,
Yeah,
just
no, I'm talking about
for
the
the
one because
chest.
there's also an eye on his chest and stuff.
Yeah.
There would be quite a lot to remove if you were trying to de-Horusify,
No, it's more.
de-Sons of Horus him.
No, it's more. People use transfers and want to continue using transfers
I
on the
see.
shoulder
Okay,
pad
yes, that's true. Yes,
because it's
I'm
things
I'm one
like
of them. Yes.
the 40k Indomitus. Um, if I want to use that for my 40k army for my Blooded Claws successor chapter for Space Wolves, I've used the upgrade kits. I don't think they're going to make Indomitus shoulder pads to go in upgrade kits.
No.
And it's also on the wrong side. So if I used aggressor ones, it would be facing the wrong way. So
Okay.
I'm
Yeah.
like, ugh, that's annoying. So I've got the kind of reverse problem with that one. But hey, it is what it is. We got Lord Castellan Evander Garius. Now he is it's quite a pretty model. There's a lot going on with
My
both these
my
models.
preference of the two was this one. I thought this was a very. It's just got some real heft to him.
Yeah, got some movement as well though, with the not just the cloak but the maturges on the whatever they're
Yeah.
called. Such a strange word, isn't it? Um, it's like sweeping with his arm. Like his
Yeah.
fist has just been raised to point at someone that he wants dead.
A piece of detail I've only just noticed by re-looking at the image is the sculpted weapon damage to the victim that he's walking across,
Yeah,
which
I was
I haven't
just
seen. They
looking
don't
at
do
that.
too much of that, and it's quite pronounced.
That's
Presumably intended to be the result
effective
of a
of
Volkite
Volkite.
beam.
Yeah,
Mm.
I was just looking at that myself as well. I ain't painting that. Not like that, that's for sure. Um, yeah, no, really nice model. Um, again, this one with the cloak, taking the fist off the cloak would be a pain if you want to use. But then there's
Yeah,
quite a lot of detail on this one anyway. So if you're going to convert him to something else, you've got to commit to that. But I do like him. He's cool. Won't be buying him.
I could
The
see. I could see people easily using this as the base for a number of legions. I mean, I think actually, yes, as you say, take that. I mean, that fist off the cloak wouldn't be too bad, but I could see this fitting a bunch of
although
different legions. I don't think it's
yeah,
too bad.
could be
Also, there's not
annoying. It's
actually
the
that many
chest.
fist logos. Well, you've just got
But
the you've got the tower and the
that's a
star.
tower, isn't it? Yeah,
It's not super.
maybe.
I don't think that's super. I think you
You've
could
got
go
a
a number of
lot
ways
of
with it.
the Maltese cross style. You've got
Eh,
it on his
have you?
tabard, on his shin, on his chest, like a version of it on his helmet, and on the little
One,
waist
two,
as
three,
well.
four, five. Yeah, but I
It's
mean, the
quite
one
a
on
lot
the
for a small
helmet.
model.
True, the one on the helmet's
I mean,
easy.
it could be. Yeah, that's fine.
It can be suitably. I mean, it's almost
If
star-like. I
that's the
don't think
only
it's.
one, it doesn't matter anyway.
No, it doesn't
Um,
scream Imperial Fist necessarily.
no, but I like the cloak. I like the claws over the top of
Agreed.
it.
I also
Yeah,
like
that's
it.
annoying.
Also suggests that the helmet, the Mark Six helmets that they did for Imperial Fists, look pretty good with cataphractii armor.
Mm. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it's a cool fist as well.
Underslung Volkite. I haven't seen that before. I don't think. Oh no, I suppose the is it the Kontakar Night Lords. I'm murdering the pronunciation. I suspect the Night Lords Terminators have that. I think.
I mean, that's probably a bigger part of the problem. Is like if you are taking this guy, who's putting Volkite on
Yeah, that's
on
fair.
their
Yeah,
character. So that's like, oh, his arm's useless.
yeah,
But no, it's a pretty cool model. What was interesting is we got a little bit more info as well from the Siege of Cathonia book. We got a couple of stills that we put up, including some new Mark III armor,
yes.
which is interesting. They talked about, so I suppose we should talk about the roadmap because they're mentioned in there. But there is, where are we? Armor Mark update in the autumn, which is surely this. Still quite a
Yes.
long way
Now there
out
was a
for.
lot of people in the room at the event. I think jumped immediately to Armor Mark and
Yes,
thought, oh, we're getting
didn't
another
read the
Armor
rest.
Mark, and particularly as we saw Mark II in the vehicle kits, and there was an assumption that it would be a Mark II or a Mark III, given that there isn't a kit for that. Right now, on sale, Mark III, Mark IV, Mark VI. So there was a certain logic to suggest that Mark II or 5 would be ones coming along, perhaps, in the future. But as you say, it is Armor Mark update. And again, there were people in the room who were quite adamant that with that still image up, that it was Mark II. But there are some really distinctive items of Mark II that are not present, and again, really distinctive items Mark III that are. It's a take on the Mark III that does make it look a little bit closer to Mark II into the past. But I was firmly in the camp that it was Mark III, and I believe that's what it is. It looks cool.
Yeah, there is some old imagery of those types of helmets with Mark III as
Yes,
well.
there is. Yeah,
Um,
that sort of fixed style. Yeah, which this
which
isn't.
is
Yeah,
pretty cool. They also showed us some assault marines.
they did. Yes, knowing and made a nod to the fact that they knew full well that people were very, very keen to get their hands on these.
Indeed. I mean, it's this is obviously they're close enough now that they can talk about them. Where are we getting them? Are they? Assault Squad is winter, so it's still quite a way off. It's a bit of an early
That's more than 3 months.
viewing.
Yeah,
Yeah, which they do every now and then. And just goes to show that the upgrade kit was a get you buy thing, as we talked about in this parish, that it would be that. Because why would you not do these guys? Like they're telling you now that they're coming. Uh, yeah, interesting responses. I mean, some people will never be happy.
well, it's interesting, isn't it?
Could they have
It's
come out earlier?
interesting.
Yes, but
It's
they're
interesting
not.
that the schedule here has ended up, and I mean, there's so many factors that must contribute to this schedule, but there there are two plastic kits. No, mention there infantry kits in one in autumn, one in winter. If you had to pick which to bring out first, the assault squad or the armor mark update, I would have thought you would go with the assault squad. They're only a season apart, so it's not
There's
exactly
also a Legion Command Squad. There's 3 on there. But yeah,
fair point.
you're right.
Yes,
But
fair point. But I would probably
maybe
put that third. But in terms of this, the one that's interesting is bring out the Mark III update. I did hear someone suggest the other day, which hadn't occurred to me, is that wouldn't it be interesting? And I think this is quite unlikely, but wouldn't it be interesting if the Mark III kit gave you an option to build breaches?
yeah,
I think it's unlikely, but it would be
I think
cool.
it's unlikely. Because why would it say mark update? Yeah, maybe potentially. You'd
Be
be
cool, wouldn't it?
advertising it. Yeah, but I think you'd be
I
teasing
think
it
you'd
more.
advertise it. I completely agree.
Yeah,
I think you would advertise it as Breacher Squad.
maybe we're
And it would
wrong.
just happen to be that the Breacher Squad would be a Mark III rather than make it about Armor Mark. But I agree. But that would
Yeah,
be awesome.
I like these 2 assault marines though. I like the fact we got 2 very different poses.
Yes, it
Got a
also
combat.
reassures that it's not simply an upgrade to
Yes,
the existing tactical, the 5 tactical poses that we have. It's nice that it is a distinct set of models.
Plastic jump packs, which is cool because, of course, not all your assault marines are going to be. It means you can use these guys as well for other units, despoilers, things like that, as a basis, and even things like your space wolf specific squads. Got a shield at least coming.
Is that tricky with the torso with the straps on them? Probably not, really, is it? I suppose you could just have straps on a.
You can. I suppose so. Actually, yeah. It depends how they fit on, doesn't it? I suppose they'll be part of the torso.
But I'm sure
I'm
sure a regular marine backpack will fit on those. It'll just be a bit odd that those marines have.
Well, the one on the left on the image, the one standing rather than running, seems to be a lot less. Kind of the one that's on the right is more stands out up more from the model. Maybe it's just the way it's modelled, but you can get in there, and it's plastic. It's so much easier to get into and cut around without worrying about making the big mistake that you can with resin. I mean, resins, it can be easy to cut, but it's very easy to go wrong.
But like you say, very cool. There's a hint of it's clearly shown that there's a combat shield in there. So we're going to get weapon options in that kit, beyond it being a separate special weapons kit of some kind, which is pretty good.
Indeed.
So that's going to be cool. So there's I also thought it was good that they showed the roadmap in the way of breaking it down, plastic and resin. I thought that was quite nice.
Yeah. So what have we got? We have got plastic. We've got the Vindicator Siege tank coming spring. We've technically in the UK, spring lasts till June the 21st. So, depends what they're classing by spring, but it could be up to June 21st. And that's, again, things might happen that delay this a little bit or move this around a little bit, but this is an intention. Night Lancer in the summer. Autumn, more Lords of War. I suspect that's when the retoolings get done.
Oh, could be.
More than anything else.
Mistakenly thought it was going to be other variants of the Night Lancer. But I think what you're saying is far more likely.
I don't think they'll drop them straight away. I think they'll leave them a bit. I mean, it could be wrong. They could throw another one at us straight away.
Could do, but I think yours is more logical. I think your suggestion is more logical that it's the retooled super heavies.
Dreadnought, there's a big Derrideo in the picture. It would make
sense. A big Derrideo that doesn't have weapon barrels that are pointing off at different directions. So
indeed. And someone was trying to say that the shape of the missile launcher looks differently. I don't know. Whatever. The Derrideo is the obvious choice for the Dreadnought, unless they're going to give us one of the new old ones, or old new ones, however you want to look at it, but I think it'll be the Derrideo. Then the Armour Mark update, all in the autumn. Winter, the Assault Squad, and a Mystery Army release.
That's really interesting, isn't it? That's really interesting.
Confirmed in the Q&A that the Demons of the Ruin Storm is still set to drop this summer as PDF. Mm-hmm. So this is something new. If I had to put a pound on it, I would guess Dark Mechanicum.
I think it's between that and Solar Auxilia. I think it's more likely to be Dark Mechanicum.
Mystery Army release?
Exactly. That's why I think it's more likely to be Dark Mechanicum.
Yeah, I think if you did a Mystery Army release and release something that was out, or something that's available, it would be a bit weird. Wouldn't put it past them to do it, but my hope would be for some kind of Dark Mechanicum force.
It also ties in with what's happening in 40k, because you've got this Vashtor character, and there's hints of his followers and otherwise. So I would have thought there could be a bit of coordination.
That there's something coming on the Dark Mech side. I mean, there was some talk about it just being Imperial Army rather than Solar or Militia, but I can't see them doing that.
No, I don't think so. Not before you do a Solar Auxilia or similar.
Unless it's Black Shields is another option, but again, Mystery Army release. Like Mystery Army release, not Army Book.
No.
Army release suggests new models, something slightly different. Could be wrong, but I would, I'm going to put £1 on it being Dark Mech. And if it's something cool that's different, go for it. Awesome. And then spring next year, melee weapons and Legion Command Squad melee weapons. So
Melee weapons in plastic, so so similar to the special and heavy weapons upgrades brews, I'm
yes, I
guessing,
suppose for the assault
which is
squads,
very cool. Yeah,
to go with the assault squads, which will be interesting to see how they break that up. Which
it
again,
would actually be interesting whether it's similar to the Necromunda packs, which are the sort of half-size boxes that have a
yeah,
selection of weapons, bit similar to the resin packs that you can buy now, the Mark IV, Mark III combat weapon upgrades with loads of pistols and power swords and lightning claws and power fists, that sort of thing. Because I would imagine you'd have a smattering of those because you tend to take those as in smaller numbers. You don't tend to equip a 20-man squad. I'm not sure it's an option, is it? To equip them all with
yeah.
power swords or something. I mean, there's the odd elite unit that can do it, but not
I suppose the
much.
only thing with doing that is then they become kit bash packs as well that can
Yes.
be used across different things. So yeah, and command squads. Bearing in mind we're getting command squads, that gives you, because
Yeah.
command squads can be equipped with all kinds of fun stuff. So it's probably quite a good time that it comes out alongside those, to give
What you're
you.
going to get in a command squad, you're going to get presumably a fairly generic console type character, a captain type character, a herald.
Well, I mean,
Um,
they're not. You'll get a command squad. You'll get 5 dudes who can be used as a command squad, but yeah, slightly blinged up. Maybe you can then use them as consoles. It'll be it'll be like a command squad.
as in a retinue type of thing, not the.
Yeah, as in
Yeah,
a
okay.
Legion command squad option from the book.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, yeah. But that can include Legion standard and all those kinds of things as well.
Yeah, exactly.
So,
Yeah.
and they're in artificial armor and things like that. So, yeah, there is potential there to have some slightly less blingy consoles, things like that,
Okay. Yeah.
which could be quite a good little kit. And then resin. So in the spring we've got Evander and Varen coming out soon. Somewhere
That's
in the
way
UK.
sooner than I thought it was going to be, but that's great.
Well, the book has got to be out fairly soon. So
Yeah.
again, it could be June 21st. So another month and a half away. Um, but that's cool. New characters and upgrades. Whatever that may mean. Always good to see some new characters coming in. A Primarch in autumn, and they kind of confirmed it's someone who's pretty different at the end of the heresy than at the start of the heresy. Uh, who knows?
Yeah.
I
Could be a number.
It could be a number. Well, I said no. It could be. I mean, we've got Horus out already. It could be any of the 4 that become demon princes.
The
Um,
money would be on Fulgrim out of
if
those.
they want to do that. Yeah, I'm not. Yeah, I don't necessarily think it would have to be
I don't think it
Fulgrim
would
ahead of
be.
those. Lorgar, because he does ascend.
And he's an obvious one in terms of having these sort of two different profiles. So he would
Yeah,
have a
exactly.
certain logic.
So it becomes a bit obvious. Then you're looking at loyalists. Are any of them really very different at the end of the heresy, looks wise? They're not really, except for Ferrus. Um, and the Khan, to be fair. Um,
I mean, the
but
Khan was, and that was asked in the Q&A. So they say, when are we going to get Khan on a bike? And you sort of think, yeah, that would be a possibility for this option of where they're revisiting Primarchs and doing alternate, often. The one they've done so far has been a glow up, has been a bigger version of them. There's an obvious opportunity to do that with Khan, but given the Khan was one of the more recent ones, I
but
wouldn't have
also
thought that
he's,
was that likely.
apart from joking that he's very different at the end of the heresy, he's not.
Yeah,
So
indeed. Yeah,
yeah,
and none of
um,
the loyalist ones are
none
dramatically
of the
different,
loyalist ones.
really.
Not Perturabo is pretty much the same. Kurz is the same. Um,
Yeah,
trying to think. Well, I mean, Alpharis is the same ish.
Yeah.
So yeah, I money's the sensible bet is on Lorgar, which would make sense, which is cool. And it's
Bucks
good
the
we get
trend
one
somewhat
so
of
quick.
their focus, obviously, on Imperial Fists and Sons of Horus.
So
Slightly bucks the trend of that, but yeah, that's fine.
I mean, has the focus on Imperial Fist and Sons of Horus been over the top anyway? Not
No,
really.
not particularly, but it
No.
has been there.
Well, it
It
will
has been
be
there,
because
particularly with the
it's
Siege
their
book as well.
campaign book. Yeah.
Yeah, and it has been
And
obviously
when
leading
we get
into
the
that.
next campaign book, the focus will be on the 2 major legions in that, or the 3 major legions in that.
Fair enough.
Yeah. So whatever. What is interesting is Horus came out in January.
Yeah.
Yeah, something like that. And we're
Yes,
on
it
to
was
two
sharpish. Yeah,
Primarchs in the same year. Pretty good.
yeah.
I
That
think
and
that's
we
pretty good.
given the amount of effort that must be needed, the amount of design time that would be needed for those
Well,
kinds of
this is the
models
difference
is
between hand sculpting and computer sculpting, surely.
yeah,
Now,
yeah.
I assume this is assuming Simon's done it. Simon. Ever since I went on John Ashton's show, My Life in Miniatures, where he corrected me because I called Sam rather than Simon when Simon goes by Sam.
Yeah.
I was like, every time now, I'm like, yeah, Sam, Mr. Egan. Um, because again, he didn't do the base on Horus. Like they are splitting them up and have done for quite a while, various parts of it. But yeah, looking forward to that. And then in the
Yeah, that's a
winter,
major
new, new,
milestone release, isn't it? Mm.
yeah, new characters and upgrades. Upgrades is an interesting term. So we got that for winter and spring next year. New characters, we might get, consoles. We might get Legion specific Praetors. We've still got quite a few of those to come and things
There
like that.
is, and there's definite legions that are lagging there.
Upgrades
Mm,
is an interesting term. I mean that. Oh, actually, yes. Hold on. I said more Lords of War in plastic, didn't I? Earlier. That can't be those new resin releases. That is more Lords of War. What Lords of War have we got in the book that aren't plastic? Maybe it is another knight.
that's a good point. That it's
Maybe it's a
plastic.
new Lord of War. Interesting choice. Yeah, that was a schoolboy error on
There's
my
not
part.
there's not a lot in terms of. Well, I didn't spot it. There's not a lot in terms of. I mean, to call it plastic because it's got plastic sponsons would be
Yeah,
beyond
no.
a stretch.
Is it? Yeah.
That's a very good question.
I'm trying to think
Fly
what they haven't released yet.
It's the fact that it's plural is odd as well.
Yeah, because we got so unless it is the Knights, they're bringing us the other Knight kits, which would be a welcome surprise, to be honest, that they follow it up so quick. I'm trying to flick back now to look at the. I won't be able to find it. Trying to think what else is in resin that they didn't confirm because basically we know the Typhon, the Cerberus. What else is there? I don't know. Can't think. So yeah, maybe it is Titans.
As you
Maybe
say,
that's
though, upgrades is an interesting thing. Could that be vehicle upgrades, perhaps?
I mean, it could be, but there's
It
lots
could
of
be
different
Legion
upgrades.
specific.
Could be,
Could be
yes.
Legion specific Terminator
Oh,
upgrades.
could be Legion specific. I wonder. I wonder if they'll do things like the Grey Slayer pack that they did for Space Wolves, which was an upgrade kit to go on regular armor.
Could be, and you
So
could do that
maybe,
for things like, well, yeah, the Grey Slayer one in particular could work for it. But bearing in mind, by that point, you'd have the Mark III armor out, and you have the Assault Squad out. So you could have
exactly.
upgrades that fits on those. So you could have Imperial Fist Phalanx Warders, Imperial Fist
Huskars.
Templars.
Yeah, you could do. As you say, you could do Terminator ones. You could do regular power armor ones. Maybe that's a way they're approaching making it a bit cheaper. Rather than collecting full resin kits that you can
Yeah,
buy Mark III and then do upgrades like they've done with the Contemptor Dreadnoughts.
yeah. You convert kits over, which are not particularly if you're retiring the Mark III kit, anything that requires the Mark III Well,
Yeah,
yeah, but anything that requires Mark III resin as a base kit, and I'm thinking here of Templar Brethren particularly, you have to buy the Mark III
sure.
Despoiler Squad as a base,
Right.
or Assault
So
Squad or
if they're
whatever.
if they're a little bit small because the resins are tend to be a bit smaller anyway.
Exactly. So
Okay. Yeah.
not only that, but you've got this new kit. You'd retool it, wouldn't you?
Yeah. So yeah, I think upgrades we're looking at stuff like that potentially, which is not a bad thing. Um, whether they throw something in at us on these as well, it might not be everything we're getting, but it's good to have a roadmap. Like here's a here's a expectation management tool. When
Yeah.
you're sitting there thinking, oh, we don't get anything, it's like, well, this is what they've told you, and anything on top of that is a bonus.
There was a
And
major emphasis on roadmaps. Every preview, I think, had a roadmap in it, and so there's been a real push for this,
well,
which
they've
I
been
think
doing
is
it for a while now for 40k, Necromunda, Age of Sigmar. Um,
they have. There's precedent, but they hadn't done them for a while, and then to do them across the board, I thought was very good.
well, no, they did.
Well, they did Underworlds quite
They do
recently, but
short. They do small ones every now and then. So they do a roadmap
yeah,
every now and then at Adepticon, Age of Sigmar had a 4 or 5 book roadmap. Like you're getting these, and then you're getting an order tome, things like that. And I mean, if there's any time they're going to drop you a roadmap, it should be their flagship event.
yeah.
So that's good. I say, every now and then these things get delayed, pushed aside, or what have you. So it's well worth remembering that it's not always smooth sailing with these things, but we've been asking for a roadmap for a long time, so finally got one.
I've just been through
Which
the Lords of War section on the Forge World website, and there's actually very few
mm,
items in there now, particularly with the removal of the super heavy marine tanks. But it's when you've taken those out of the equation, you've pretty much only got the knights. It's them and Primarchs. The other things are things like the Mechanicum Ordinatus Actaeus, the big drill thing,
yeah, it's not gonna be
Ordinatus
those.
Unitoid. Obviously, it's not going to be Mechanicus things. Titans,
I
Primarchs,
mean, there is.
the odd
Ooh,
flyer, and that's it.
let me jump back on that. There is the question. So when's the Night Lancer? So Night Lancer's out in the summer. Yeah, no, it's before the Mystery Army release. I was wondering if you could tie into
Yeah, could be. I was
Mechanicum.
thinking that maybe it's
But
Mechanicum, but no, I don't think so.
no. Yeah, again, like expectations managed. It's the other nights, or at least one of the other nights, two of
Yeah,
the other
it's not.
nights.
It's not going to be a Thunderhawk, is it?
And you wouldn't have thought so. Stormbird, plastic Stormbird confirmed. That's cool. But that was our heresy preview. There were a few questions about heresy in general, but not much that was really worth talking about. Say the Primarch bike would be cool, but obviously, even if they're doing it, they're not at a point they could talk about it. Because that's the other thing with these. They can only answer so many so far in advance for
I thought they did
questions.
a very good job of fielding those questions. I think
Yeah,
special praise goes out to Eddie of the community team who was fielding the questions, all of them, and Adam Troke doing a very good job of
yeah.
receiving those
That's
questions. And between them, I thought they did a brilliant, because it can be quite easy to stray into a sort of snide type of comments or condescending. There was none of that. It was all taken in good faith, answered well where they could. I thought, yeah, all props to them. I thought they did a good job
not
of that.
just that either. Knowledge. Like to keep in their head,
Yeah,
like what they are allowed to say, what they're not allowed to say, what's been fed to them. Just to answer some questions more than they thought they would. That kind of stuff. When it's at the end of a Q&A like that, and people are asking all kinds of stuff, they do a very good job. I think they're lucky. Adam sometimes on screen, it's not like he's not the people's favourite sometimes when doing the preview shows, but when he's working the audience, seen him at events be quite firm with certain people in the audience, and or on the back of someone saying something and him like reiterating, look, let's not waste our time. If you're going to come up here and ask questions about when are you releasing this, like, you know, what date's that going to be, what's that kind of stuff, he says you're not going to get an answer, you might as well sit down.
Yeah.
And actually he deals with it in a firm way, but without putting anyone's nose out of joint, but
Yeah,
also
I
then
thought
helps move the event on and ask more pertinent questions.
yeah, I thought he did a very good job of that. I thought he was. I mean, I've been, I think, somewhat overly harsh of his approach on some of the previews, but I think it completely changed my opinion the way he was there in that live room, which you mentioned before. And I was quite impressed with all of that. And so I thought they did a good job. I thought the atmosphere in there. I thought the format, particularly the venue, lent itself well. That auditorium, I think it was something like an 800-person auditorium. It lent itself really well to that from the 40K one where they'd done such a good job. Well, I mean, their machine now is very good with the videos and that. But that room with that many really hyped up, enthusiastic people, when you've got
So
good sound, good video, that was quite something.
I've been in previews at fests before, at weekenders, at where else have I been? Adepticon, Blood and Glory. Now the Adepticon preview showing when they basically gave in and showed Heresy was quite an electric kind of buzz in there, and lots of excitement. The atmosphere in the Old World and the Heresy event was possibly better than that, which is saying something. And
I agree.
environment helps in that auditorium because the noise is better for a start.
Yeah,
Everyone's got an absolutely clear view. All those little things.
yeah, I agree. It's when you've got a room that's specifically designed for it, including the lighting and sound in there. I think that really lent itself very well. I haven't seen them do. I mean, they said themselves that they were finding it electric having the room set up in the way that it was, rather than just being a big conference room where everyone's on the same level, tiered seating alone.
Yeah, because you can see people, like you can see individuals in that kind of thing, so they'll have a much more. The crowd will look bigger because of the way it's set out from the stage, and that can influence. Like you talk about, I mean, they're entertaining at the end of the day. They're on a stage. We're watching them, and videos, so it can feed into what they're doing as well. We did forget to mention the one.
No, I thought we were saving that. I thought we were saving that to the end.
Well, I need to talk about the Old
intentional.
World because you and me, we love the Old World. The cheer for the Old World stuff was even louder than anything else. It's like this has been pent up for a long time now, which it has to a point, and people were there just. Most of the questions were about the Old World in the Q&A. There was a
overwhelmingly so, actually.
there was a definite kind of we're here for official Old World information, which was brilliant. Beautiful models. Yeah, keep an eye in the future. I might be doing something with the Old World on a different show, but yeah.
The Old World has not been. It's not something I was super enthusiastic about, to be honest. It's because it's not something. I mean, it was always following it all through. It was a 40K through from second edition onwards, and Epic before that. That's what got me into Games Workshop, Epic, and to a degree Space Crusade. But so I followed it a long time, and fantasy was always a thing on the other side. It was something I didn't play myself, whereas other people were hugely passionate about it, and because of that longevity, I can entirely understand that enthusiasm. It's not. I mean, I'm interested in it just to see it evolve or something, but it's not something I'm intending to jump in with.
Well, I think it's a little bit like when they announced, and I was at I saw a 7 o'clock showing opening day of Phantom Menace in the cinema. There was a buzz because we all loved Star Wars. I hadn't seen any of it at the cinema, but other people in that cinema had. There was a it's coming back. There was a super exciting.
How do you compare that with when Heresy launched? Because I would say it's similar to that, but I think your analogy
No,
was the
it's
better one.
bigger than that
Yeah, I
because
agree. I think
you
it's a
didn't
better
have the
analogy.
love.
Yeah.
You didn't know what you were getting with Heresy. There was excitement about what could Heresy be. There's that with the old world, but there's also our good friends coming back. Like
Yeah, that's
people
true.
spent a lot of time in the old world. Does this mean we've got Black Library books everywhere? People have got armies they're ready to dig out. They've got you've got a question like I was thinking the other day. I think Joseph Bugman took over the brewery from his ancestors. I could be wrong. Like, is Bugman's XXXX like going to be in it? Like all those kind of little things add
Mm,
into an assignment of something we were told was going to happen 3 or 4 years ago, which we've seen a handful of maps and some, up until that preview, some, kind of, oh, here's what some weapons might look like.
mm,
And then we've suddenly got official, like, here's some models of a game system we haven't touched in X years, particularly with Bretonians and Tomb Kings, which are kind of cult because of the way that they were shoved off so quickly,
yeah,
but also kind of loved by the people who played them. Um, so yeah, it was and it's a similar audience to Heresy as well.
yeah,
Uh, the old world is not going to be a cheap game to get into. Um, if you want all the cool stuff, because a lot of it's going to, there's going to be elements of resin within that, and guess what? You're probably going to need a few models.
yeah,
So, like, and they said, no, this isn't a newbies game. This isn't like get your 10-year-old in off the street and get him straight into the old world. That's not what the old world's kind of. That's not where it sits in the pantheon of Games Workshop games. It's going to be you've been playing games a while, cool. Have you ever thought of going that extra step and doing the old
yeah,
world, and that extra level of commitment, because I say resin for starters. Um, so yeah, it's cool. And I mean, fanatics. Like one of the questions in there which made us laugh was someone asking if Mordheim is
yeah.
around in the time of the three empires. Has it been founded and all that? And Eddie was like, I'm not sure what year Mordheim was founded. And immediately out of the audience, someone's gone, yep, 1686. Like,
It was to applause.
yes,
I'd add
exactly, yes.
there was a lot of love for that kind of thing, and yeah, you're right. And without missing a beat as well, that was good.
And part of that is it's been missing a while. So, when something is missing a while, always like absence makes the heart grow fonder, but also time and um, uh, what's the word for it? Nostalgia will smooth over any
Yes,
negatives that have come with things as well.
and they
So
did do it well. I mean, they started with it, they opened with it, and the sort of not trailer, but the promotional video, I suppose, the was really quite strong. I thought the voice acting on it again, it lent itself to being in that venue, and I would recommend to people to do that. That to me was one of the bigger takeaways, that the buzz you got out of the room, but also just seeing that sort of thing on the big screen was really impressive. And that certainly was stirring, seeing them do the background video for both the Tomb Kings and the Bretonians. Yeah, I don't know which was more stirring actually out of those, but they did that machine that they're going to put into place for that is going to be formidable and very effective.
I mean,
They've
you
got
only
some
have
very
to look.
talented people doing that.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't get. Well, we'll talk about that later, but the Cubicle 7, kind of all their fantasy stuff appeals to me big time. I'm just not sure I have any time to do it.
Yeah,
Like that is 40K is a rich background for sure, but because of the contained nature of the old world, you feel like you can know it a lot more. I think
yeah,
because it only goes so far. Um, like in 40K, there's always space that you don't know about or something but within the old world, you feel like you get to know the parts of the Drakwold and all that, and you're like,
yeah,
oh yeah, I
yeah.
know what happens there. So familiar, there's a familiar feel with it. But cool, yeah. But we did get one and finally piece, which we usually do in these things.
Particularly the main events, like a really big landmark ones, of which Fest arguably is the biggest landmark show. So it was likely that we were going to get something, but it was a good one.
So what is it? It's Command Legions in a new scale. What was it?
Report to the Strategium was the video. It was only a few seconds long, wasn't it? It was pretty short, little video, but it had the look of, and you said it at the time, it had the look of one of the old school battle reports.
Yeah.
So you have this sort of tactical map with icons going across it. It's Command Legions, and then the title of the video on YouTube is something like Battle in a New Scale. So you think, given certain rumours rolling around,
square bases and rectangular bases.
Yeah.
Like the image of the Titan that they showed off with a slightly different base. The fact that, right from the start, Aeronautica was in a similar scale. Let's not pretend that everything's to scale as AT.
I would disagree with that, but I would say it is. But anyway, that's another conversation.
Okay. Some of those GW's in scaling has been notoriously loose within its own games. Even now, like there can be real inconsistencies. But yeah, either way, they look enough the same scale to work.
They've clearly been conceived together.
Or whatever that scale is.
Yeah.
Because it's not actually a scale. But
no, exactly. I would agree with that. Spot on. Yeah, it's just a
don't worry about it.
Down of the 40K thing,
tiny 40K.
Yeah.
Allows you to play huge games. Much excitement. Teaser trailer. Now the question is, does this? We didn't get any dates or anything for Old World. In fact, we were told it's not going to be anytime soon.
No.
Does this lead up to a November release in that traditional November slot?
This would feel, because that is a really interesting question, isn't it? Are you going to get Old World before you get this? This is a teaser. I would have thought you would be saving Old World for next year, given that they said it's not anytime soon. But
potentially,
then if it's next year, it's potentially going to clash with an Age of Sigmar release. Because logic would suggest there might be another Age of Sigmar.
Oh yeah, the third edition of Age of Sigmar was released in June 2021, which 40K is now on a 3-year, or has been on a 3-year cycle. Age of Sigmar on a 3-year cycle.
They've also just announced those Dawnbringer books, which are very similar to this sort of every faction gets a little focus thing. It's a narrative storyline to see out an edition.
Yeah, a narrative thing to launch the next edition.
Exactly.
And to move to someone else. However, I could easily see Old World being November next year, or that kind of scale of time.
Could be, yeah.
But,
which would then suggest that this comes sooner. And given that you've got a teaser trailer, and I've heard people talk about this in the past, if you get a teaser trailer, it's seen to be a significant release. It means that they're throwing a lot behind it. Of course.
And the Old World is an anomaly. They told us about the Old World a long time ago, so they have to keep telling us about it, because otherwise people get worried. And they told us about it, no official word. They told us about it because games like Game of Thrones were starting to get traction as square-based unit fantasy games.
Yeah, and as you say, they've got to kind of keep that machine fed, and they've almost turned that into a development diary kind of approach, a bit like they did with the Sisters of Battle. And
which they haven't really done since with anything in 40K, because it's a pain.
They did it a little bit with the World Eaters. They did it. That's about it, really. They did it to a much greater extent with the Sisters. That's kind of been it. Other things they kept under wraps, and they're doing it with Old World. But whereas I think the teaser trailer is the start of what is probably a 4 to 6 month release schedule. So it's in November, potentially.
If it's November, which seems to fit. Released in the Age of Darkness, in the Heresy, the Heresy event, which
Makes
suggests
perfect sense.
there were things on the video, wasn't there, to show?
Yeah, but what I mean is, it makes perfect sense to do that with it. To save you having to release, say, Eldar when, Orcs when, all that sort of stuff. It's just,
I mean, but
no, we're
also
going to release
the
3
tokens.
kits.
What I'm saying is the tokens had fists,
Yes.
Mechanicum logos, Titanicus logos, and Eye of Horus logos on them. So it suggests whatever it is based around like the poster boys of the Heresy.
Yes.
Yeah, it will be interesting to see if it is that. Oh, what are those symbols? Yeah. Oh, what are they at the back? Oh, have you?
Yes, I assumed they were fists, but I can see now what you say that.
The
I don't
back
think they are.
no, slightly different, aren't they? Trying to, they're almost like crosses. I wonder what they are. Oh, man, looked at
Salt
videos
symbols.
online. Sorry.
So we're looking at the video here, just so
Yeah.
everyone can actually hear what we're talking about.
As the
The
blocks and
video
squares move
is,
down,
yeah,
there are, so on the fist side you've got big blocks with fists on, 2 rectangular blocks with fists on, and then the final 2 that appear at the back don't appear to be fists. Whether that's, I can't really tell what it is.
they're not what I would describe as a particularly recognisable Legion symbol either. They're so small, it's hard to tell. But
who knows? Interesting. But yeah, like Epic is a game. I was talking to someone who's like, yeah, if Epic comes, I'm dropping everything.
I would be in the same boat. For me, Epic, I mean, I'm enjoying Titanicus a lot at the moment. I mean, I enjoy that scale. I love the models for Aeronautica. I love the models for Titanicus. Epic would be the nostalgia hit that would be really significant for me.
Yeah.
I know it sounds like I'm not alone, but I mean, that's in a fairly closed circle.
There's an age group, like, so if you're younger, if you got into this game earlier, like mid to late 90s was this kind of boom time in other games other than 40k and fantasy. We had, Gork and Walker, Necromunda, Blood Bowl, Man War, and all of those games and more. And all of those games had their own cult following. Mordheim is a weird one. Lots of questions asked about Mordheim in the thing. Like many more people played Necromunda than played Mordheim. But the people who played Mordheim and love it. The people who played Gorka Morka and loved it, love it with an absolute passion. War Master, like supposedly a very good game. I played like 2 games of it. Epic at its best was a very, very good game.
And also, Epic has a much longer period than any of those other games because it was a core game.
I would say at that late 90s is Epic Armageddon is when it got really good, like really good.
I agree with that. In terms of good, Epic Armageddon is the best, in my opinion, is the best version of the game. The earlier iterations of Epic, the earlier versions of the game, first and second editions, it was Space Marine and then Space Marine, then Titan Legions after it. That era, it has a certain look. It was given as much weighting in White Dwarf as Fantasy and 40k at the time. If you went into any Games Workshop at that time, that it was at least as much. It was as much presence as that. It was a main game system.
Yeah.
That went away, and that must have been related to it tailing off sales-wise or otherwise. And as you say, it was reinvented. Epic 40k had its. I mean, I enjoyed that, but it sort of they refined that with Epic Armageddon. That was really that was a very good tactical game.
The ability
strategic type game.
Yeah, 10 Lehman Russ tanks down, move them around as a unit, that kind of stuff, and not have it overpowered. Like, it's super cool.
I maintain I've had some of the best war games I've ever had using the Epic miniatures.
Like, I mean, so I was listening or reading some people talk about City Fight and things like that for 40k, and then someone was like, oh, that was back in the day where half my games were Apocalypse. And I used to play Apocalypse, and I always left a little bit underwhelmed by it, because essentially, even with Apocalypse, even with new Apocalypse, 40k doesn't work scaled up to a proper war game. Very few games do. You need to bring the size of models down. You need to have proper rules to allow you to do ranges and movements properly to have a proper war game, not a squad-based combat
Agreed.
game.
I think there's an
And
argument to say the 15 mils, so that you see the people playing Flames of War, and I think there's that World War III
yeah,
Cold War type game. Yeah, maybe, but I think it really kicks in at this kind of scale. Is that then you start to see tank companies
which is that
moving
6-8 scale around there
exactly,
again, keeping it
exactly
loose. Yeah.
6, 8, 10, even that sort of size. It's where you start to see those tank formations starting to look like what we've seen on the news when you see, when we saw modern conflicts of vehicles and things moving around. There's miles, there's hundreds of meters between these vehicles. It is not a parking lot that you tend to see with the apocalypse style games where everyone's brought all their models. That has a charm, that has a certain appeal, but it doesn't feel like a realistic like a war game. A war game. These are just the scale of them is of these where you're invading whole towns at once with things, and you're moving companies around. You just get that. It reflects more closely my image of a lot of the battles that you hear described and you read about, etc., and you see shown in the imagery. That's why I loved it. So, and you had these enormous games, like I say, where you had infantry completely swarming over a city that you had built up, and then you had Titans wading through them and being brought down under weight of fire, that sort of stuff. That imagery that's difficult to do in 40k. It's a different kind of, or 28 mil, whatever, heresy or 40k time and scale games. Whereas I think Epic is going to fill that niche, and as you say, it's got a certain nostalgia hit for a lot of people who were looking at those images. You still see it now in various groups and on the socials where someone puts up an image of those white dwarfs or those brightly coloured units moving around on bright green flock boards, and it gets a lot of reaction. So yeah, I'm hopeful this is going to be really successful.
Yeah, and if it does come, we'll be covering it on the show, no doubt.
Oh yes,
about
please,
that.
with extreme prejudice. Yeah. And when it turns out to be a mobile game, then we'll be
there
very
was
sad.
some fear of all that, but the previews have never ever touched into anything like that, so I'm not worried about that one iota. And that was about all. That was the previews. That was the news from the event in terms of 30k and Old World.
I was impressed. I thought there was quite a lot that got into that.
It was decent. As a preview go, bearing in mind you were sharing preview space, so you get an hour's period of time, but actually you get 30 odd minutes of actual preview, 20 minutes of Q&A. So, yeah, I thought it was decent. Didn't expect too much and got possibly more than that. So for Fest, this aspect, this preview at least, gave us what we wanted, if not a little bit more, which is good. Fest itself. So we went up on the Friday night. We stayed over and we did Saturday and Sunday. Must say, Games Workshop invited us along as content creators and gave us a free ticket to the event. So thank you to Games Workshop. Actually ended up saving us a bit of money because we returned our tickets. Because there were multiple tickets. So you could get day tickets, weekend tickets, the VIP. What are they called? VIP? What are they called?
Premium.
Premium.
There was the standard. There was 1 day tickets. There was weekend tickets, both at sort of standard level. And then premium. There was premium weekend.
So tickets. A weekend ticket was 40 quid, a day ticket was 20 quid, and a premium ticket was £140, in which you got a goodie bag, which when we got there we discovered was a T-shirt, a couple of limited edition models, like the event only models, and there was a couple of other little bits.
Pack of dice, a coin, a mouse mat. I think the mouse mat was
probably some socks from
I think it was their mouse mat actually. Yeah, one of the partners.
Possibly, like I went there thinking, okay, I probably won't want the event models, but friends will, so I can sell them on to them. Recoup that cost. There should be, hopefully there'll be something in there to make that worth it. It's a bit of a risk. Kind of glad we didn't do that in the end. The T-shirt was pretty bland. It just said WarhammerFest on it. Bit disappointed with the T-shirt. Didn't actually wear one or see one, so I don't know how good quality they were. But people were wearing theirs around.
There was plentiful supplies of the limited edition or the event-only models, so you could have picked those up anyway.
If you want them,
Admittedly, it would have avoided the queue. More on that later.
Yeah.
More on that later. But
again, if you go to Nottingham at any point, you can pick them up anyway.
Also true.
I was talking to a friend who was like trying to get me them. I was like, dude, you can pick them up in Nottingham next time you're there. Oh, can you?
Yeah.
Cool. But there was also the Golden Throne ticket.
Yes.
This was £1,080. They sold about 80.
Yes. Well, because another thing that's worth mentioning is that the premium ticket was also billed as coming with premium access to various activities that were in there. Premium access, I think.
Was on the premium.
Yeah, it was
definitely
billed.
A different entrance or something.
So I said that it's priority access. Now, whether that was priority access to the event itself, or just to certain activities like the previews, or
no, I think that was just the event itself.
I'm not sure.
Golden Throne had the extra access.
Yeah. Yes, and yes, exactly. The Golden Throne definitely and clearly had very specific access, but I think the premium one was supposed to have it as well, but a different level of it. Anyway, the fact that we're not able to sort of clarify this, both neither before the event, we had an issue because we had a friend with us who had a premium ticket. He didn't know where to go to get in, if it was indeed that, and he saw no benefit from that in terms of premium or priority access to anything, even though that was definitely mentioned as part of it. He didn't know how to either capitalize on that and certainly saw no benefit from that, which was a shame. When that's obviously a relatively minor portion of what it was, but then you've got that to another whole other level with the gold, super golden emperor ticket sort of thing.
Yeah, Garrow bought one. Facebook friend Garrow. He purchased one because of a number of reasons. One was access to previews, things like that. Two is he buys the stuff anyway. A lot of the stuff anyway. It was all shipped home, so it was £1,080 supposed to get you premium access to the event, which it did. A room in which you could relax, which was kind of one of the big appeals of it, actually.
An exclusive room, yes.
An exclusive room. In that room, they actually had drinks and food all weekend, like sandwiches and crisps and things like that, which, again, like, pretty cool. Free shipping for your goodie bag, and your goodie bag with a guaranteed value of at least £1,500, which ended up being best part of £1,700. Which had things like 4 Primarks, they had all the event exclusive minis, and then it was bits of randoms, but they got like a starter set for Age of Sigmar, and army box for this, and army box for that, and from what Garrow was saying, that sort of a few of the foreign travellers jumped on it. If you're spending a lot of money, adding that, getting the free shipping home, if you're coming from certain other countries, the price of those goods might be more, higher in your country as well. So you could, if you can, I think when it's something like that, unless you're the biggest fan, there's also always an element of how much of that stuff can I move on, because I get back 250 quid of vouchers for the weekend.
Valrak does quite a good. Chapter Master Valrak does quite a good YouTube video, because his followers contributed and got him one of those tickets as well, and he went through and did basically an unboxing.
None of our listeners did that.
I mean, I'm just devastated, obviously, that comment on our capabilities. They know full well we'd have been scathing, so that's not what.
Well, maybe. So when you look at it like that, if you spend that 250 quid on Forge World, because that there is no discount value for that.
Interestingly, you had to spend it that weekend.
Had to spend it that's clever. I
thought
don't disagree with that at all.
No, I don't see that as a fundamental problem. I just thought it was an interesting move.
Yeah. But they're already shipping you loads of stuff as well, so it doesn't matter. But if you go and spend that at Forge World, then you lose none of the value of that £250. And I would, if that was me, I'd have gone in and bought loads of Titanica stuff and some bits and pieces that I haven't got around to buying yet, and that 250 quid would not have lasted that long, unfortunately. But that's a quarter of the value of your ticket there.
Yeah.
If you go for a weekend, that's a minimum of 40 quid. For Primarks, I mean Primark's like 80 odd quid now, aren't they?
Yes.
I was talking to someone who was putting them in there, and it was all a bit random. But if you have 4 Primarks, and again, being able to move them on or wanting them, like it always comes down to how much you want this kind of stuff. 100 quid for the line, 90 quid for us, 80 quid. Yeah, I mean you average that out, 85 quid, something like that. That's
I mean, it depends. It depends how you view what they put in there. I mean, are they putting in their stuff that's that little bit older? Probably stuff that they have.
I'm sure there's aspects
an excess of stock of it. Yeah, maybe. I mean, when I say older, I mean things that I'm thinking. Having watched the Valrak video yesterday or whatever it was, he had like a Space Wolf Combat Patrol for 40k. He had a bunch of terrain, but he spent a lot of I think he spent all the £250 on terrain anyway. But he got a bunch of I think there was a bunch of terrain things in there. Got like the Nurgle tree thing. He got
it's a bit random. So Garrow here,
Flesh Eater Court set. Yeah.
So Garrow. 4 Primarchs, you got Kharn, Guilliman, Corax, and Magnus. Battle Force, you got Necromunda, Ash Wastes. Got a Flesh Eater.
Well, that's quite cool.
40k. Yeah, exactly. Ash Wastes is like a decent chunk of money. He got Nether Maze starter set for Underworlds. He got Ossiak Bone Reapers Battle Tome, Imperial Nobles Blood Bowl Team. 3 of the human-sized McFarlane figures.
Yes,
one big one. A pack of Titanica scenery, which most people got. 2 random packs of scenery. You got Death Guard, Chimneys, 40k Ruins. 3 packs of faction dice. Both the event models. Loads of event pins and coins, which people do want. Event t-shirt, Warp Pop, and a decent backpack. A year of Warhammer Plus. That's another 50 odd quid.
Oh, there's an interesting one. Was
digital codes
all digital
all
codexes.
The 40k Codex and Age of Sigmar Battletome releases. Access for both of the evening events, which are pub quiz and cinema. So that's another 30 quid, 25, 30 quid. Early access to the event through a private entrance. Entry to Golden Demon, that's another 15 quid, I think. Queue skips, so the front few rows of the seminars were reserved for those people who had a golden ticket. Which for Garrow is one of the big draws. For other people as well, previews can be big draws. All of that, loads of stuff, all sent to your home for free as well. They said they were trading stuff within that room because everyone's going through it going, well, I've got this, I don't want this. Oh yeah, cool, I'll swap you for mine. Stuff like that. I mean, it always comes down to, okay, you're not going to get full retail price for everything there. You've got 250 quid's worth of vouchers. The Primarks you can move on, like at almost full cost, I would have thought. Terrain, things like that. I mean, Ash Waste starter set, Ash Waste's box is not cheap. I mean, bearing in mind they were giving away the Guild Team box at Adepticon for the VIGs and all that. A couple of event models, all that stuff. It will always come down to, because it will never quite be that. How much is that room and the access worth to you? Now, I mean, I don't know how much you spent on food in the venue. I mean, the one good thing about the venue, you didn't have to, but buy 3 drinks at the venue, that's £6.60, just for water. Have a bit of food. Like, you can, it means you don't have to leave the venue.
It does add up.
They also had one big thing, 2 private Q&A sessions with one of the 10th edition writers learning about rules, philosophy, aims for 10th, which again is access. So how much do you value that? But I don't think like the golden ticket was a bad ticket at all. I think that worked out. I think the premium was met at best.
Oh yeah, I feel that was a miss. But even when they announced it, it was interesting that I think for quite a few people, and ourselves included, you sort of looked at it and thought, well, that's not insane. The initial outlay is painful, and that's I think the reason, obviously, that puts you off in some ways. Just like, well, hang on, that's a lot of money to tie up in something,
5 months,
and then you have to go through a process. Yeah, exactly. It's that, and it's the fact that it was that high value made it a thought process. But the fact that no one was really laughing at it that I heard of. No one was like, well, that's just ridiculous. That's not worth it. That wasn't necessarily the question, which I think it was quite well judged that they put that together. And that way, the fact that we're discussing it in those terms, it makes it a very interesting proposition that it was made reasonable or made an intriguing value, if nothing else. More so, I would say, considerably more so than the premium ticket, which seemed to. I was going to say fall between two stools, but it didn't really. Even that, I don't think that really worked in the form it was. Overall, the event, then. I mean, do we want to just give a brief overview of how it went? I mean, we turned up and it was a surprisingly big queue, which we think is down to the security involved. Probably.
Yeah. Right. So so the main hall. There was one main hall for the event, and it had each of their game systems basically had an event running, except for Titanicus. You had that was all one side of the room. Those events were timed to run most of the day. Now, if you played, so Mikey from Hellstorm Wargaming played the 40k event over 2 days, and all 3 of his games on the first day ran time, and he saw none of the event. Which is why I didn't buy a ticket, because that has a habit of happening at these things. You buy the ticket for the gaming, you don't get to enjoy the event. Mm-hmm. So didn't want that to happen. And we were only going to be there 2 days, couldn't be bothered to. I thought, okay, we'll see what's there and have time to hang out with people as well. There was a big shop, as is usual at these things. There was the 10th edition, learn how to play 10th. There was a chunk load of licensed partners, computer games, RPGs, other stuff, mainly computer games, wasn't it? Or computer-based stuff.
It was largely the computer games, who had the most significant presence. There was the RPG guys who were there. I think there might have been 2 of those. But the rest were all the digital
pretty much digital
representations.
Stuff. Yeah. There was a board game cafe, which was basically come and borrow a board game of various kinds from their library, which were a lot of the kind of easy to get into games, and then Underworlds and things like that as well. And what else was there? Golden Demon, of course. Mm-hmm. There was a scavenger hunt that went on around the whole event. And then outside that main room, they had the area where the cosplayers could leave their stuff, but you could also go and they would be hanging out and you could chat to them. They had a laser tag-esque thing. They had the theatre for doing all the previews and the other bits and pieces.
They also had a big room for just essentially chilling out. It was where they had the food stalls.
Yeah, they had an area to sit and eat.
Food stalls around the edge, and then they had an area that was people could just go and sit, and it was all laid out a bit like an airport lounge.
So the venue is fine. It's Manchester Central. It's right in the centre of the city. It's an old railway building. It's concrete floor. It's going to happen anytime you get these big events. Now they've moved up from the size of the Rico. 12,000 people over the weekend is what I was told. I've seen people inflate those numbers. Someone saying there were 10,000 people there on the Saturday. I don't think there were quite that many, but it was by far the busier day, by far. And there was no. I think importantly, like there was no studio staff at all. Zero interaction with the people who make the games, make White Dwarf, paint stuff, anything like that. If they weren't manning a stall, they weren't there. Essentially, they were off duty. And were told as much. There was a couple of Black Library authors walking around. I talked to one of them for quite a while. He was very much, it was clear he was there not as a Black Library author, which is a big shame.
Black Library had zero representation.
Yeah, and Black Library had zero reputation. The only thing Black Library mentioned the whole event was there's a book coming out with Leviathan. That was it. Terrible. Now, there are some people who. Oh yeah, I suppose we should say the organisation around the shop. I mean, the shop queue was monstrous on the Saturday.
I've never seen anything like that at a Games Workshop event of any stripe, be it a weekender, be it a fest. And I've seen fests in various other large scale locations, and I've seen the shop. That shop was by no means the largest shop they've put together. The Forge World stuff they had there was minimal.
So someone did point out, and I didn't really look through it, that it was a lot. There was more of a focus on the stuff that's not readily available. Like they had lots of stuff. They were kind of, haven't seen them around for a while. Here's some event stuff. Which is fair.
People were mainlining by far. The people in those that were going through the shop were mainlining the event exclusive models. Probably either because they don't go to Nottingham, or they didn't know that Nottingham you could get those models there. They were selling those. Virtually everyone in that queue, and as you say, that queue must have been over 2 or 3 hours at times to the queue to pay. So the queue for it was already quite. They'd set up quite a lengthy snaking kind of theme park style queue around those tills. I would say there was probably 12 to 20 tills there. It was probably more like 12.
No, it wasn't that many. Or maybe it was 12.
It wasn't 8.
It
was more than that, but yeah.
Okay, it was just more than
it was somewhere in that sort of 10, 12, that sort of number, yeah. They had a snaking queue. Then the queue went well outside of that and went along the side of the shop floor area, which was quite a lot. And they had quite a lot of their, what I would call the GW mainline, the ranges. They had a lot of Age of Sigmar and a lot of 40k on stands. They also had lesser stands for box games, Black Library.
Yeah, I mean,
and then an area for event exclusives.
At the end of the day, it's a shop. Lots of people for some reason. I mean, if you're at an event like that, if you're shopping for regular stuff, like you expect Forge World and event stuff to sell well. That queue ran past the 2 tables that were there for learning how to play either Kill Team or Underworld.
Underworlds, yeah.
Okay, so there's one table for learning to play Underworlds, one table for learning how to play Kill Team, but that queue got in the way of that. The shop itself was tight in there. It was manic and horrible.
It was unusable. For all of Saturday morning.
Yeah, the queue also went past the area where the new the new Leviathan models were being shown off, to the point where I never looked in those cabinets because, again, that area was just horrible to get to. It was abysmal. It was also right next to the area where the Learn to Play 10th edition was happening, which was 5 tables of 10th edition and a half-hour session each table to have one turn to get into the rules. I'm fine with the half hour, one turn, get the basics of the rules. The guys who run those know what they're doing. They're very good. The 5 tables, there were, when they revealed 8th at Coventry at the Rico Arena, there were at least 20 tables. Someone said 40 tables were painted up. I don't know if they were all used, but there was at least 20 tables in a small room constantly being used for a weekend. And even then, people were queuing to do it. At this event, The tabletop tactics guys, I think they jumped out of the queue at about 1.5 to 2 hours with at least that to go. That queue, I originally was like, I assumed that was the shop queue, but that queue, it was like an hour and a half to get to the point where they'd laid out the area to queue in. That also went past some stuff and kind of got in the way of everything. The popular computer games Bolt Gun, there was a queue for that all weekend, understandably. There was a queue for the card game. There was a thing where they could take a photo of you and do stuff. There was a queue for that. The sit down and build and paint. There was a queue for that all the time I walked past.
That was big. That they did.
And that was a lot
There
of
was a
people.
lot of space for that. Yeah.
And to be fair, I misunderstood that event. I didn't realise like that when you bought a event model and then you took your time and they just gave you all the sprues you wanted to convert it, and then you could build and paint it, and they had little competitions for that. Fair enough. If you're in a queue for an hour to sit down for a few hours, that's cool and do that. I understand that. Bolt Gun, I don't know how long, but that's computer gaming, and I think they were moving through that queue. But when you look at, particularly 10th edition was supposed to be the big thing of this event, and those tabletop tactics guys queued almost as long as the biggest queue I queued at in Disney World to go on a ride. So I queued for like 2 hours 40 to ride Flight of the Banshee at Animal Kingdom in Disney World a few years ago, and it was worth every minute because that ride was amazing. And you're at Disney, and they try and make the queue fun. It's not fun, but they try and make it fun. But you accept that is what it is. You get on a ride which you can't do anywhere else because it's fully, you're in it. You're properly in it. I'm not spending 2 hours 40 minutes queuing to try and learn one turn of 8th edition with in the end with 7 other people. They had 8 people per table, which they had to do trying to get through people. I'm not queuing 2 hours 40 for that. I'm definitely not queuing 4 hours for that. It's not happening. Like their original plans of the people who originally planned it had even worse plans, and luckily, lower down people were like, yeah, it's not going to work. Full credit to the guys who work there. I don't know all their names. Mike, Nick Baton was doing it, Simon, and the usual crowd that do those 5, 6, 7. I think they're all guys, because they did that for 3 days, constant.
That's not easy.
And everyone I've heard who did a demo with them, so they were all brilliant. And I think that's important actually. Every single staff member at the event, whether they were just telling you where to go, or running an event, or selling on the shop floor. I mean, the guys on the shop floor on that Saturday, staff members looked at us and were just crying for them. Yeah, because it was a bit.
It's brutal.
Yeah. Talking to a friend in the events team who'd walked 100,000 steps in the 3 days leading up to the event, and then worked 3 days of the event, on hard floors. But they were all smiling. They were all, helpful. They were everything GW staff should be. And
that's without fail. Actually, I would agree with that. There was no question of that. There's never any question of that.
Even the higher ups. We talked to a few higher ups at different points. There was I actually talked to the woman who was in charge of the whole event at one point, who was just about to eat and had been repeatedly interrupted. And I was like, I'm so sorry. My question's really insignificant. Just eat. And she was like, no. What's the problem? I was like, it's just this. That's all. Were fantastic. Whatever was going on. I spoke
to the retail staff throughout the weekend, but particularly Sunday and Sunday, and they were pretty chill. They were somewhat shell shocked from the first experience, but they were all super helpful. Still really keen to help everyone, try to have a good time. The person who a friend and I did the Kill Team demo. That was fantastic. We really enjoyed that. Arguably, that's an experience you can have in games workshops around the country, around the world. But as always, it lived up to that experience where they were knowledgeable. staff, even if it wasn't necessarily, as was the case with the Kill Team demo, that wasn't his job. That was his job was something else within Games Workshop, of which he was just doing this because he knew the game and played it personally. It was fantastic. I really enjoyed that. And I think as staff, every interaction I had with their staff, including senior people, was very, very positive.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think like we've been to pre-COVID fests, we've been to games days, all that kind of stuff. I've seen people, and maybe the events have changed. It doesn't appear we're going to get any staff to interact with from design studios, from paint studios, from whatever. That seems to be a thing that GW just got rid of. Okay, fine, whatever. Back in the day, we used to get participation games. They've gone. Fine, whatever. Things like we used to have the art of White Dwarf up and stuff like that. But a lot, I could go to a Weekender or WarhammerFest, and I could not do anything except some previews and interact with staff, and my weekend would be filled. 2 days would be filled, or not necessarily filled, but I would be extremely satisfied for 2 days. You can't do that now with GW, with WarhammerFest. Now, is that a problem? Not necessarily, because there might be another way to do it. Unfortunately, there was no communication of kind of this. I went there and didn't play in a game because I didn't want to restrict myself. Also, if I played in games, I wouldn't have been able to go to previews. Ian, who's done his YouTube channel, did Underworlds, which meant he couldn't go to the quiz because he turned up 3/4 of the way through it. Timings were hard, like to be able to do stuff like that.
You're having to make choices at a point, yeah.
And he wasn't sure at various times what he could and couldn't do because timings weren't put up right at the start, which might be, let's be fair, might be the fact that this is the first time they've run this type of fest. However, they are still a company charging you money for going to an event, and maybe that's something that they should have organised beforehand. Now, going again, maybe I don't go on a Saturday, and that helps a lot of things, because maybe I do queue for an hour and a half to play 10th edition, which you could have done Sunday morning. Sunday midday, it got longer again. Maybe I do that come and build and paint stuff, like actually seemed like a longish wait, but for a very decent chunk of activity, particularly if you've gone with friends and you're all sat around together doing it.
The board game cafe, although I didn't happen to use it this break, is something friends and I have said would be a recommendation for them to do a bunch of their events. We've said that you're a games company, and why am I struggling for knowing what to do in the evening? Some of the quizzes, weekenders we've been to in the past, took on a bit of a surreal turn, shall we say, and not necessarily in a positive way. Whereas you think, well, surely the board game cafe model would work a treat, and it was busy.
It was busy.
It didn't look overwhelmed.
I wonder if it was busy because of the amount of queues, but then people not wanting to do other stuff. And it was also a place to sit down at a table.
But I thought it was a very effective one of those. I thought they did that. I thought that went very well. I find it curious that there were games there that you couldn't buy.
And go and buy, yes.
There was games there that you can't buy in the UK. I find that curious as a particular model of those mini the mini Underworlds and the mini Blood Bowl and the mini Combat Patrol. It's Combat Arena things. I think they had those there. You think, well, I'd have to import those if I wanted to play those. That aside, I think the principle of that works well, and it's the sort of thing you could do. It's about trying. I think what you're getting at, though, and what I agree with, and we haven't really discussed this outside of this, but it's what's the unique offering. And I'm kind of getting at it with there, saying I really enjoyed my Kill Team game. Same with the 10th. Okay, yeah, the 10th walkthrough is something that's unique to it right now. But again, you're going to be able to do that in any Games Workshop in probably a month's time. Whereas the access, Build a make you
Yeah,
can't do.
I
Yeah,
just,
probably not.
I think the access is gone. I just think you have to accept that. Ian, well, so another Pete Reese actually went on the Monday with his kids, fully armed with iPads to sit in queues, and said his kids loved it. Ian
Oh,
said
that's
it.
interesting.
Ian said it's like it's now just an event you go to. It's it's a day out kind of thing, and I'm like, that's all fine if you know that going into it. Certainly, a 3-day event is too much for me. I think that's far too much. If you want to enter Golden Demon, you've got to be there at least 2 days over a bank holiday Monday, particularly May bank holiday Monday. Traditionally, like down our way, there's all kinds of stuff going on. It's a real family kind of day. Normally, it's the first, summery bank holiday of the year, that kind of stuff. It's a tough ask, but I can sort of understand that. But you can't have a 4-hour queue to do a demo of something, and you can't have a 2-hour queue to do something else. Just you can't do it now. They had this more space there that they could have utilised, and I don't think they necessarily utilised all the space that well. Over the weekend, I had a fun time at WarhammerFest. I interacted in the daytime, apart from my creator, and to be honest, and we had a creator room, which helped with that because I could go and sit in there and chill out for a bit. We and there was other stuff around that, but during the daytime, both days I had a good time because I saw all my mates I haven't seen in ages, which frankly I could have done if we'd all just gone to an independent event or gone to a pub. I didn't interact with GW for a long period of that thing, and that's not cool. Now, as I say, maybe there's an element of me readjusting what Fest is, but I think there's also a measure of GW telling us what they're making Fest. It should be clear, and it should be out there, plain in front of all. This is what you're going to get. This is about engaging with the things we put on, whether that's events, whether that's playing 10th edition, whether that's licensed people. We're not going to have people there to talk to. Go and play. Mind you, a few of the events were extra money as well. The laser tag was extra money. We could have done that in the evening, but we shut off on the creators' period of time. Mind you, had we done that, we wouldn't have done much else that period either.
No. That was 18. I had an age limit on it. You had to be 18 or over because it was physically quite demanding.
Well, that's the other
you were
thing.
carrying heavy equipment. It wasn't a kid's thing.
No, Golden Demon. Something like someone was saying 1,500 entrants. There was a queue to look round Golden Demon because of the nature of British people. I could walk round and peer over the top of this queue without queuing and see a decent chunk of the top shelves. But I hate standing around. People, spend 10 minutes looking at one shelf and then move on. I don't want to bet. I'm 6'2" and I could do with losing some weight. I don't want to bend down and look at the bottom shelf too much because you've got to move on 3 foot and do it again. I don't want to be there for a long period of time. Why Games Workshop don't utilize the internet a little bit more to show off the more and more entries of doesn't have to be the best stuff. There's some really interesting stuff going on, but they're taking each of these models. They've got 3 days, just photo everything, and also put screens up at the thing and just cycle through loads of the photos so that you don't necessarily have to be close to them. How cool would it be if you've entered your first Golden Demon and you're like, with a bit of luck I might get to a final, oh, that would be my goal, that would be my dream to get a finalist pin. Oh, they show my model off on a screen, like to the whole of Fest. Even if you don't get a finalist pin, at least you've seen that kind of thing. And we were lucky enough that we used a bit of our time in the evening. Even then, like we had half an hour and we were rushing
Yeah.
to look at all the stuff. It's a tough one.
Like you say, there is a general to look at it in a reasonable way and sort of review it in a reasonable way. You have to consider that it's hard to compare it to previous events because it comes off in a different way. It's a different type of event now, and you have to kind of view it in that way. And I think that is a more reasonable way of reviewing it. But knowing that, I mean, we've said on numerous occasions, certainly I've discussed it with friends, I think we've discussed it here before, communication is the key, and setting expectations. I'd say we've talked about the importance of that, particularly with tournaments or gaming events, should I say. They're covering different types of event.
Yeah.
Setting the expectation for that is key, and I would say that was true of this as well. And then it was also true of the larger event. It was you got to set the expectation of what's there rather than merely hype it to the max, which isn't necessarily the way to go.
And there were changes and things that didn't quite fit right with what they'd said. So, organisational structures in GW, this wouldn't be the first time that stuff's been, that elements of stuff are left to last minute. I wonder if the lack of 40k tables was that, or more was lack of staff, because there was a lot of staff there and they were spread thin. Like there was a requirement that shop could have done with more staff. The general event could have done with more staff. The events team trying to run various events could have done with more staff. Everywhere you looked, it was like, yeah, you could do with more staff. So whether there's a limit on, there's already in GW, you'll find, like the person who did your intro game for Kill Team, that so and so from X department also handily does this. So you get this feeling that people are always working a job and a half. Like the events team that run events at Warhammer World, their job is the Warhammer World events. It's not also running open days and things like that. Really, it's the weekend events and stuff like that. So when it gets to something like this, it's kind of added on to the jobs they already have, and they pull other people in maybe from other places. And this is why sometimes you get not quite ready for the event, or they can't quite do what they wanted to do. I mean, what's interesting is we're seeing all the open days go to free tickets. That helps sets an expectation of cool. Well, it doesn't set an expectation, but it reduces expectations. And also, if you turn up and you go 2 hours later, or I'm done here, oh, it's a free ticket. Like it reduces the kind of kickback. Fest is always going to be more expensive. There's more money involved. And the events team, fair play to the guy running Heresy, did a good job with limited kind of resources, I suppose, and ability to kind of do any kind of narrative. 40k is fine. You turn up, you turn on BCP, go to your table, you play the mission they tell you to play. Narrative events require a bit more than that, and it's not easy to do in big rooms. The single player event was almost 90 people, I think, so it puts it up there with my LGT event for like, and I had almost had more support running that actually from on the Heresy side of things than he did. It was a bit tough, I think. Yeah, I don't know. Would I go next year? Maybe. Manchester, it's a pain. I live in the south coast. Everywhere's a bit of a pain. Manchester's that much more of a pain. City centre Manchester. If you don't book your hotel early, you're paying a lot of money for a hotel that's within walking distance. The one really good thing about the location was we said food. Like you could walk out of there, you could walk 3 minutes up the road and there was a Greg's. By the time I got there on the Sunday, it was almost out of food.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people have done
it. I thoroughly enjoyed being in that city centre location. I thought this is I really enjoyed being able to go out of that event into a nice area and have the full amenities of a major city, and right there in front of you. We had great restaurants to go to in an evening. You could go out and enjoy a night out. On the other hand, I also quite like the events that were more closed, and then you had that more social
Yes.
event, but you didn't tend to have that at a fest ever,
No,
a
it's
fest
too
or a
many
games
people.
day. Exactly, you didn't know it's too many people. It wouldn't work. It's not the small scale weekender, so the two aren't really directly comparable.
I
On
don't
that
think the venue
basis,
was. Yeah, I don't think the venue was a problem actually. I think the venue was all right. I think it could be utilised a lot better. Um, like one thing is on the entrance, like you were faced with this big kind of like you see people have seen photos of it, like this kind of backdrop that looked super cool and made you think you were entering something special. And then you turned around the corner, it was just a hall with tables set out and things like that. It was a real sort of a letdown actually, because of that cool hype of that initial buzz you got looking at that. If I go again, maybe I'd stay either book the hotel cheaper or stay out of town and get the train in. Because there's tram right next, there's trains, there's options for all that kind of stuff. But the problem is because of the distance for me, I don't want to drive up or home on one night in which I'm doing something. So it still becomes a 2-night thing, which means you might as well kind of go to the second day. So you're buying a 40 quid ticket, which is not a major issue, but you got to make it work. I think I would avoid the Saturday like the plague next time because it felt twice as busy on the Saturday as it was on the Sunday. I don't know if that's true, but you know, it was, and the Monday apparently was pretty chill. So maybe I'd go up on and do the Sunday, and then maybe do a bit of the Monday.
that feels like quite a good
Balance,
compromise. I
but
mean,
then
we
it's
discussed that at the
having that
time,
bank
didn't we? The
holiday
idea of
Monday.
going up in a more leisurely way on the Saturday. Yeah.
I mean, we had what didn't help in that respect was we had a creators evening on the Sunday, so we wanted to stay for that. Otherwise, we probably would have left like early mid afternoon on the Sunday anyway. But yeah, it's an interesting one to see what they do with it. Now we know that they were taking on feedback. I think the teams had lots of feedback for each other about the way the event ran. I think there are. I think if they ran with it and improved things, it could work. Comes down to budget for GW. They don't like spending money they don't have to, and it's sold out. And enough people, I think, have said they had a good time to kind of make them think, cool, we'll just do it again.
Yeah.
But I mean, if they ran the same, if they were to run the same event again tomorrow, and rearranged it to have 20 odd tables playing 40k, and the shop was designed in a way like they've done before, where you have a big queue that goes into an area that's organised. Or, I mean, we were talking about the event. Other events will have a section like on your ticket where you can say, yes, I want both event models, or they can't do that early, but they could do it as an additional thing. Like, I'm coming to this event, I want these 2 models, please, thank you. Can you put them with my ticket? Like, I'll pay for it now. So there's no queuing to buy those kind of things, because not only does that mean those people don't have to queue up, it frees up the queue for other people who do want certain things. It will never be perfect. Shopping will never be perfect, but I also think you're not going to get it as bad as days of past when book 7 of the Heresy is going to be available at this event. So everyone's like, I must get that, because I just don't see them doing that much anymore.
No,
They
I
haven't
don't
done
see
that
them
for a
being sort
while,
of
have
these.
they?
No, I don't see them having exclusive releases at an event. I just
No,
don't.
they have the event
That's
only models, which you can get at any event at any time during that event. So not like we've got 30, however many Warlord times they had that first time. Was it 18 or something? 16. Although I can't imagine doing that, which reduces the need to then go queue up early and all that kind of stuff. I mean, the queuing to get in is what it is. Like, you're going to any big event, you're going to get bag searched. You're going to any big event, there's only so many entrances. Like, that's fine. You can't do much about that. But the experience, my experience of Games Workshop at the event left a lot to be desired. Not the people, but the company and what they wanted to show me.
Yes.
I mean, without
I
that
think
preview, if that preview had been a dud,
Mm.
it would have been a pretty bad weekend. Made up for by the fact that I was with mates and saw mates I haven't seen in years.
Yes. And there's always a natural buzz of that, and I think I hope our reflections on it tried to cover this, what we thought was positive and what we thought was negative, and what could be improved upon, etc. But yeah, I think there were aspects of it, like you said, in the actual Games Workshop offerings that were there, it didn't offer something particularly exciting and unique. There was a certain buzz for the event being the nature of what it was, being a very big event, the biggest kind of Warhammer event of its kind. But when you've got there, you did a lot of things were extras. Fine, okay, there's a costing way of doing that. Was all made quite clear, but it did seem to be leaving people, even if not disappointed, leaving them a little cold from what it could have been, or perhaps what it needs to do. It needs to find its own niche in some way that previously would have been filled by having access to content creators. And by content creators, I mean the people who are the designers, the sculptors, the painters. As you say, that's gone. That's not likely to be coming back. There needs to be something to replace that, or be an alternative draw to that, something that's unique, that makes you want to go to this event that you can't get anywhere else.
I mean, it's a weird one. We've talked about Excel before, having those Doctor Who things and the Star Trek things, and when you look at them, like, what are you getting for your money? But is it just a day out, and the 20 quid for a day, that's fine? Like, is there an aspect of we have to just change approach? But I think there's an expectation setting kind of thing that GW need to look at. I think that's whether they will or not, because they'll always hype at the end of the day. So, I don't know. Will I go again? Yeah, probably, with a bit more of an open eye as to what's expected, what I expect from the event, should I say?
Yes. Will it be in the same venue again? We've got no idea.
I suspect they will. I don't think the venue has any of the. I don't think the venue caused them any issues in that respect. And from what we're told, like Ian has worked at that venue for other stuff, and it can do more than they've utilised it for. So I don't think the venue. And the staff seemed helpful. By all accounts, the food was quite good, although it's expensive. But then they all are. Like, the Rico was no cheaper, really. So in terms of what you were getting from the venue, seemed fine. You just have, these things are expensive and never ideal, just because of the nature of the beast. But are you going to get anything better? I don't think you're going to get anything in the Midlands that's better, because of the quantity of people they want there. They want the hotel, and because they need people to stay multiple days because of Golden Demon. I think it's 3 days because of Golden Demon, because they need the time to judge. So that's Golden Demon is an issue of it in and of itself. Like, unless they change Golden Demon, I can't see them going back to a smaller one. Although that has its bonuses. So I think, you need food venues around it. You need hotels. You need good transport links. Well, the NEC doesn't do any of that. The NIA is a bit of a pain. Is there anyone wearing Nottingham big enough? And then you're not going to London because of the costs. So, yeah. Where else do you go?
Yeah. It's true, particularly when it's this issue of scaling, isn't it? They've scaled up now beyond the venues they've used previously.
Yeah, and that's one thing we were talking about. They've moved beyond how any war games company has marketed an event, including themselves, and they're not big enough to market themselves like Riot Games do. In a computer games environment, they're in between somewhere. And even with the nature of how much money they've got to throw around for advertising and things like that, they're nowhere near a computer game company, but they could probably be doing more than as a miniature company they have. But that comes down to spending a lot of money. Are GW prepared to do that?
Not yet.
No, I'm a long way off.
Yes.
And even then, is it viable? So who knows? Anyway.
No, it was an interesting event to attend, and there's interesting thoughts, and I think there's a lot of people talking and giving their feedback and their reflections on that event. I think it covers it. It's interesting to read all of that, different people's views, which I think on the whole have generally been quite considered. Yeah, I think I would recommend people just doing their research before getting into it.
Well, yeah, it's the problem, isn't it? Yeah, and hopefully GW step up as well. Like, as I say, an hour-long queues for stuff you can buy, but once they get past 2, it's got to be worthwhile.
Yeah.
Stuff. Anyway, we talked a long time, so
we have.
Leave it there.
We'll leave it there.
Diamond, wonderful stuff. Cheers, Howard.
Good talking to you, buddy. Speak to you soon.
Well, thank you for listening to another episode of The Imperial Truth. I do want to say one thing we missed in the chat about what was going on at WarhammerFest was the Titan Walk. The guys were there, and GW obviously invited them. Loads of Titans on the floor. I think they were letting people roll some dice. I think partly why we didn't talk about it was because I've seen it a number of times now, and it's a lot of people with some expensive cool Titans. But once you've seen it so many times, they play, just for a bit of information, they play Titanicus. The Titanicus rule set with some slight variations, I think. And they've got, the whatchamacallums, the cards up on, they made their own ones large. So they're shooting the weapons, taking the damage, all that kind of stuff. And it's impressive and it's cool. But it's not a participation thing, really. I think they allowed some participation, but I didn't stay by it. But it's cool. I mean, it's cool they were there for people who don't get to see that thing very often. Obviously, we're in a bit of a different position with that one. Certainly drew the eye of a lot of people who were a bit astounded that they were a thing, really. So that's pretty cool. And we started to see Fest reviews go up from different people as well. We didn't really talk too much about the tournaments and stuff because, we didn't really have much to do with that, to be honest. And that certainly is a way to do things. If you're doing multiple days, is to do an event one day and then have a look around. But then I think you're committing a full 2 days at least, because your event will not leave you a lot of time to do anything else. So you're essentially starting your regular fest kind of thing on a second day. But hey, it's all good. We're moving on. There'll be lots of new stuff to talk about. As I say, we are looking at bringing in the new kind of format next time. If you've got any ideas, please feel free. Email greg@theimperialtruth.com. If you've got any questions about Fest or anything else, use that email as well. You can find the show on Instagram. on Twitter at imperial_truth. Personal account is on Instagram at Child of Fang. Personal Twitter at Child of Fang. We got Facebook. We got the page. We got all the links in the show notes. One thing I do mention every now and then, but someone pointed out to me, we have T-shirts. We have merch that you can find the link in the show notes, and I think you should be able to find it on the website as well. It should be. Well, I might tweet about it, but on the socials in a little bit of time. But we have that as well if you want to support the show and you just want a cool T-shirt. I think they're quite cool designs. Personally, they're not particularly expensive. They're pretty good value. So you've got that. If you really want to support the show an extra mile, you can go onto Patreon. Give as little as $1. You can give $3,500 an episode if you want. That would be ridiculous. Why would you ever do that? But if you just want to give $1, $2, we don't do anything per se for our Patreons because it won't happen. As you can see with timings, just getting these shows out, it's any more commitment would be unfair to kind of to put on ourselves because it won't happen. But we use it as purely as a tip jar. So thank you anyone who does that. Thank you all for listening. Thank you to the people who came up and talked to me and Howard actually during the show. Various people I knew, people I didn't know, listeners of the show that happened to see the T-shirts or recognise the face. A couple that kind of actually actively sought us out. Always good, particularly at an event where I wasn't doing a lot. It was, spent a lot of time talking to listeners of the show, which was most entertaining. I really did enjoy doing that. And for me, sometimes, talking to people rather than just doing my own thing is not always my bag. So, as I say, it was good to meet those guys. I don't think there's anything more really to say. We're going to come back. We're going to talk about more stuff. We're going to try and progress this show on a little bit. And again, like Greg at theimperialtruth.com. If you've got ideas, if you've got questions, you've got ideas, whatever you've got, just throw that in at us. And I think that's it. So we're going to leave that there. We're going to come back and hopefully from episode 169 onwards, we're going to have a bit more of a new show feel to what we're doing. And this rambly bit at the end might be condensed, done in a different way. Anyway, exciting times. But until next episode, you have been listening to The Imperial Truth.